And this chilling audio recording of an elderly man shooting 2 teenage intruders dead is the smoking gun that would help a jury come up with an answer. Little Falls is a small rural town in central Minnesota.
8,500 people.
It's usually a trouble-free little town.
Or at least it used to be.
No, it's changed.
And it would never be the same again once Byron Smith returned. Living like an old hermit in his house on Elm Street, which would become the scene of the kind of horror that movies are made of.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, it was Nightmare on Elm Street.
And to many in town, old Byron was Freddy Krueger.
But on the other hand, you had your people that felt Byron was a hero.
Byron Smith had always been an enigma in Little Falls, where he was born and raised. He was widely respected as a man who'd spent his life serving his country, first in the Vietnam War and then as a security expert for the State Department at U.S. embassies around the world. But there were also those who thought of the lifelong bachelor as a strange, mysterious recluse.
He's kind of a loner.
He was a very private person.
He just wanted to mind his own business. Didn't really have very many friends.
Largely because Byron had been living overseas.
I'm sure he would have made many more friends than he had the opportunity to do.
Kathy and John Lang, as well as other neighbors, say Byron would rarely venture far from his beautiful sprawling estate on the banks of the Mississippi River.
He loved that house. He loved that land, and that was his pride and joy. When he retired from his job, he was going to retire and move back home and live peacefully.
Bill Anderson, who lives next door, says Byron had been living alone at the property for several years since retiring and inheriting it from his parents. But despite some perceptions to the contrary, Bill says Byron actually turned out to be very friendly and likable once he got to know him.
Byron and I became real close friends. You know, we spent a lot of time together.
The Langs say they also became good friends with Byron.
He was a little shy, and then as you got to know him, we would invite him to go out to dinner with us every Friday night.
He turned out to be a nice guy. I'd go down there 2 or 3 times a week and help him do stuff on the river, and we'd shoot guns and go fishing, and we'd go out to different events in town.
But Little Falls had changed a lot since Byron had left town decades earlier. And he was said to be dismayed about the drug-related crime, including a recent wave of burglaries.
And I can remember him saying a few times when all these things were going on, boy, when I traveled the country, I traveled the world, I never experienced stuff like this. Never experienced it till I retired and moved home.
Bill says Byron's home had been burglarized several times, and although nothing of significant value was taken, the man was living in fear of someone possibly breaking in while he was there.
And then as it went on, the break-ins kept on going. In fact, it got to a point when he told me one day, he says, Bill, when you come down to visit me, ring the doorbell, count to 10 and ring it again for I know it's you.
Byron had never reported any of the robberies to police until finally he was robbed of thousands of dollars worth of possessions, including treasured keepsakes.
And he said he had some old coins that were taken, and he also had a camera, and it sounded like he was very attached to this camera, and he said that he spent a lot of money on the camera. So he was pretty upset when he found out that his camera was taken.
Deputy Sheriff Jamie Luberts, who'd gone to the house to investigate, says Byron also told him about the previous burglaries.
How did the robberies personally impact Byron?
I could tell that he was very upset about it.
Deputy Luberts says Byron told him some firearms had been stolen in one of the earlier break-ins, and that he was afraid the thieves might return armed with them.
He did not have any type of surveillance at that time, and I suggested to him that he maybe put up cameras.
And Byron would concede he should have already done that.
He was very proud of the fact that he worked for the State Department. He told me his job was doing a lot of audio recordings and setting up a lot of footage in that for the state. I said, so maybe it'll document these break-ins that are going on.
Bill Anderson helped Byron install a state-of-the-art surveillance system.
We put the cameras in. He put them in spots where they were sort of hidden. I think there was 4 or 5 cameras around the house.
And Byron would become even more reclusive, staying home, monitoring the security cameras on his computer.
He didn't want to go anywhere because every time he left, he would be robbed.
Kathy Lang says Byron wouldn't even join them for Thanksgiving dinner, as he'd done every year since he'd been back in Little Falls.
He was afraid to leave his home even for Thanksgiving for fear that someone would break in?
Correct.
So he changed his whole lifestyle based on these break-ins?
Of course. He was fearful. He didn't know who was doing this. Plus, they stole his guns.
And eerily, it would be on that very same Thanksgiving day, as Byron is home alone, guns at his side, monitoring his cameras, that alarm bells go off. Next, Byron Smith unloads on a pair of teenaged intruders, and the terrifying shootout is caught on tape.
He says, could you find me a lawyer that I could talk to and send him down here?